All right, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something I'm willing to bet you've run into before. That person who is just a master at dodging responsibility. We're going to pull apart their playbook piece by piece and, most importantly, show you how to build up a solid defense against it. I mean, think about it for a second. Have you ever been in that situation? You're trying to talk about something totally concrete, a missed deadline, some money that was never paid back, a promise that got broken. It's a simple, factual thing. But then, all of a sudden, you're not talking about the facts at all. Now it's about how you're being unsupportive or disloyal or just plain petty. If that feeling, that frustrating, confusing feeling, sounds familiar, then yeah, you've already met the person we're talking about today. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll define what the sources call the Kevin archetype. Then we'll get into deconstructing the manipulation using a real-world example. After that, we'll look at how this person can be a systemic parasite in a group. And then the good stuff, building your guardrails. We'll wrap it all up by looking at the big choice here, stagnation or growth. All right, first things first, we need to actually name this thing. When we see this pattern of someone just chronically avoiding responsibility, what are we really looking at? So the sources call this the Kevin archetype, and it's basically a behavioral style, right? It's all about avoiding responsibility, using emotional manipulation, and this is a big one, moral inversion. Now, this isn't some cartoon villain. It's not about being overtly evil. It's much more subtle, like a corrosive pattern of just avoiding things. And that moral inversion piece, that's the real kicker. That's when they flip the whole script and somehow make you the bad guy just for trying to hold them accountable. It's wild. And here are the core traits, the building blocks of this whole thing. You've got impulsivity, which creates the mess in the first place. Then there's low situational awareness, so they genuinely don't seem to grasp the consequences of their actions. And of course, responsibility diffusion. That's the classic, it's not my fault, it's the system's fault, or bad luck's fault, or your fault. They frame themselves as the victim, and by doing that, they're constantly pushing, testing, and just wearing down your boundaries. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get practical, because seeing these tactics in the wild is what makes it all click. We're going to dig into a really powerful case study from the source material, and it all revolves around a simple $300 debt. Just take a second and read that text message. Seriously, if you've ever gotten a message like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That little knot that just forms in your stomach? Well, according to the sources, that feeling isn't you being unreasonable or petty. That's your nervous system, your gut, correctly telling you, hey, something's not right here. You're being manipulated. And this is a perfect example of the very first tactic. It's called downward minimization. The reality, the actual fact, is a $300 debt. Simple. But notice what he does? He immediately cuts it in half, shrinking it down to $150. Now, why would he do that? Well, it completely reframes the whole argument. All of a sudden, your request for the full actual amount seems totally unreasonable, like you're overreacting. Let's break this down even further. That line, I didn't think a friend would leave, that's pure moral inversion. He's the one who owes money, but suddenly he's the victim of your disloyalty. It's brilliant in a twisted way. Then he follows it up with, I wouldn't leave a friend for $1,000. That's a loyalty test. The subtext, what he's really saying is, a real friend would just drop this. So, are you a real friend or not? But here's the absolute key, the real tell. Think about what's completely 100% missing from that message. Is there any mention of the actual $300? Nope. An apology for being late? Not a chance. Any sort of plan to actually pay the money back? Zero. The entire message is designed for one thing, to put emotional pressure on you, so you'll drop it. The goal isn't to solve the problem, it's to avoid it. And that total absence of commitment, that's the diagnostic key. That's how you know what you're dealing with. And look, this pattern isn't just about one-on-one relationships. It can actually act like a parasite inside any system, a group of friends, a family, even an entire workplace. It just latches on, it starts draining energy and creating chaos for everyone. Now, the sources make a really important distinction here. We need to be clear. The Kevin archetype is not some kind of strategic mastermind. A real strategist, they use information carefully to control a narrative for some long-term goal. This is different. This archetype uses entropy. They just create chaos and confusion to get instant relief from whatever pressure they're feeling. They are not playing 4D chess here, folks. They're just knocking the whole board over and hoping the problem gets lost in the mess. And because this is such a chaotic short-term pattern, it actually follows a really predictable life cycle in any group. First, you have the novelty phase. Everyone gives them the benefit of the doubt, oh, they're just having a tough time. But after a while, you hit the friction phase, the energy drain, the constant drama. It becomes impossible to ignore. Then pattern exposure. People start connecting the dots and realize, wait a minute, this isn't a one-off thing. This is a pattern. And since the archetype can't or won't change, the cycle almost always ends in what's called an exclusion event, where the group finally says enough is enough and has to kick them out just to get back to normal. Okay, so we've named the problem, we've seen the damage it can cause. Now for the part you've been waiting for. What on earth do you do about it? Let's talk solutions. Let's talk about the practical frameworks the sources give us for building your own personal guardrails. Guardrail number 1 is what the sources call the clarity lockdown. Look, this whole archetype thrives in the fog, in ambiguity. So your job is to make everything crystal clear. That means no more verbal agreements, ever. Instead, you use the receipt rule. After any important talk, you immediately send a quick email summarizing what was decided, and you ask for them to confirm it. Boom, now you have a record. And if they pull the I don't know how to do it card, don't fall for it and do it for them. Make them show their work. Have them walk you through their process step by step. Trust me, pretending to be incompetent gets really tiring when you have to perform it like that. All right, guardrail number 2 is all about your emotional defense. It's the fact-only firewall. When they start in with the victim story, they're fishing. They're fishing for an emotional reaction from you. Your job is to give them absolutely nothing. This is where you use the gray rock method. You become as boring and uninteresting as a gray rock. And you master the pivot. You give a quick, neutral acknowledgement of their feeling, like, I understand this is stressful for you, and then you immediately pivot right back to the objective fact. And the deadline is still 4 p.m. You're basically starving their narrative of the emotional oxygen it desperately needs. And this table is pure gold. It shows you exactly how to put this into practice with actual scripts. These are designed to be super non-reactive and just shut down the usual games. So when they play the victim, I'm so stressed, you just say, I know it's stressful, we can talk all about that right after the Venmo clears. When they try to create chaos, wait, I thought I paid you? You just refer to your log. Per our records, that didn't happen, the balance is still $300. And when they try to diffuse the blame onto someone else, my boss hasn't paid me. You make it clear. That's between you and your boss. Our agreement was for today. See? The focus never, ever leaves the original agreement. So, okay, we've got the tactics, we've got the defenses. But the sources argue that this goes way deeper than just learning how to handle a difficult person. At its core, this is about a fundamental choice we all have to make in how we approach life itself. And the way this source material frames it is with these 2 paths, 2 completely different destinies. On one hand, you have the path of volitional stagnation. That's the Kevin Archetype's path. It's about refusing to take ownership, blaming everyone else, using up other people's goodwill, and basically burying whatever talents you have. And then there's the other path, the path of responsibility. This is about voluntarily choosing to carry your own weight, speaking the truth, setting firm boundaries, and actively working to grow and multiply your talents. To really drive this home, the sources point to the ancient parable of the talents. You probably know it. A master gives 3 servants some money, a talent. 2 of them invest it and double it, but the third one, he gets scared, so he just digs a hole and buries his talent. He doesn't lose it, sure, but he doesn't do anything with it either. And when the master comes back, his punishment is harsh. Not because he was evil, but because he was lazy, because he chose the safety of stagnation over the risk of growth. And this really brings us to the final and most critical point. The sources argue, pretty forcefully, that this isn't a story about someone who's just a helpless victim of their circumstances. No, it's about someone being the active architect of their own stagnation. The fault isn't in one big mistake. It's in the thousands of tiny, voluntary choices made every day, over years, to avoid discomfort, to pass the buck, and to just refuse to grow. So we're left with this question. Because really, this whole analysis isn't just a tool to spot this pattern in other people. It's a mirror for ourselves. We all face these little forks in the road every single day that offer the exact same choice. Do I duck and cover, or do I step up and take responsibility? Do I stagnate, or do I grow? The sources challenge us to think of this less as a personality type to diagnose in others, and more as a path to consciously avoid for ourselves. So the question is, which path are you building?